Hey everyone, welcome back to Comic Strip Teased, where we're talking the art of comics. I'm Matt.
I'm Dave.
And today we're going to be talking about DC Comics.
So we've got different types of DC pages that we brought in today, and there's kind of a backstory as to how we came up with our first pages, especially DC.
Yeah, I mean, both of us started working at a comic store shortly out of high school, right? It would have been about 93,
right?
And at the time, I think that was around the death of Superman. And then later it became the Nightfall Batman storyline. We were both kind of Marvel guys before that.
Right.
Because usually people are DC or Marvel. So I was kind of, I was kind of new to comics. You had been in comics for a long time. And then we just kind of got hooked on DC stuff. And that led us down the whole rabbit hole of, all the good stuff from the 80s and 90s, like, Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' Watchmen, Tim Truman's Hawk World, Mike Grell's Green Arrow, The Longbow Hunters, obviously all of the Vertigo stuff, which we'll save for a different video, and, dozens of other great titles that DC were doing.
One of those books that led us into something else other than just Superman, Batman was Zero issue of Starman.
Yeah, that was a huge game changer. And, as sort of a college-age kid, it just really spoke to me at the time.
Yeah, the main character was more, I don't know, we could relate to him.
Right.
He seemed like a little bit older than us, but not by much. And I just felt like, okay, if I was in a superhero shoes, it would be more like his.
Right. Starman for me was really like the gateway into like a whole new world of comics.
Totally agree. Because Gotham Central was one of those books later on, like probably 7, 8, 10, 9 years after that.
Right.
That came out, and that was something that was unique too, because it wasn't based on superheroes, it was based on the police force in Gotham and how they felt about Batman taking all the fame, and it just being more of a gritty crime drama rather than a superhero book.
I think for DC as well, there was a huge influence from the Tim Burton Batman movie, which was kind of a reaction to Frank Miller's Dark Knight, which kind of brought that darker thing. But that really then seeped back into the whole line, don't you think?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I mean, the Batman stuff had gotten darker probably somewhere in the 70s when Neil Adams started doing it. Because before that you had the campy 60s Batman stuff.
Right.
With the pals and all that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that late 80s was kind of, the mid to late 80s is, to me, when it really changed.
Right.
I know Neil Adams was before that, but it seemed like that late 80s is when everything, really shifted for DC into that darker tone. I think overall, DC's characters, they're more iconic, but that doesn't mean that they were cooler,
Yeah, they're more almost godlike, I think, as opposed to more relatable street level characters like Marvel has.
Right.
So that's kind of how I always thought of it.
Yeah. So let's look at some of the pages we brought today. All right, so the first page I'm going to talk about today is a page that we've already alluded to. It is one of the early pages I bought. I think we got this about 1995.
You're old.
Old and cheap. It is from Tony Harris. It was written by James Robinson. We met him in person this at the Chicago Comic-Con before Wizard would have bought it.
Correct.
And to us, he was kind of a rock star, but at the time, I don't think anyone really knew who he, there wasn't like a big fan thing for him yet,
Yeah.
So I think I paid $50 for this at the time.
My God.
From him.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be a lot more than that today to try and buy a Tony Harris page.
They're hard to find, and the Starman ones that I've seen are always at least a few $100.
Right. And this page I thought really captured it well. You have the main character, great sort of kinetic energy going on. I love that the word balloons are still on it.
Yep.
You can see from the discoloration he's using old Zipatone, to add some highlights. Which looks like there's like a spaghetti spill or something on here. I just love these old pages because you just can see sort of the blood, sweat, and tears that go into it. They're not clean, they're sort of dirty, and I don't know, it just feels more like a real artist page.
Yeah.
His style was so unique at the time. I don't know, it kind of had that Art Deco thing. It has all those blacks. There's an angularness to it. The way it's inked, everything just had a style about it. And it just really connected with me. The book did. And then seeing the art in person, without the colors, just see it in this pure black and white, blew me away at the time, and it still does.
It's a great page. I'm jealous because I was an idiot and too much of a cheap ass to buy one myself.
Yeah, you were. All right, what's your first page you'd like to talk about today?
I'm going to talk about another title that we mentioned earlier, Gotham Central. Gotham Central was a very cool title. Greg Rucka wrote it. I'm always looking for pages from this title.
Yeah.
And this one was actually the most recent page I bought. Funny story though, it's not the page I ordered. So, if you're buying original art online from these major art dealers, 90% of the time they get things right.
Oh yeah, they do. But there's always hiccups along the way.
Yeah, it wasn't the one I ordered, but it's still a cool page, so I
love it.
Yeah.
I think it's a happy accident on that.
Yeah. Major characters in it. Love the inks on it. It's got good backgrounds. The best part about that comic, though, was just the storytelling, and it felt cinematic. There's obviously a lot of talking because it's actually like what detectives do. It's not just a bunch of people shooting each other and beating up bad guys in an alley, but it's kind of cool stuff to me.
Well, I just love, that whole title always had that noir feel, so you have all these, and the artists they chose obviously reflect that, the heavy shadows, hard black and white without a lot of hatching or sketching, it's just that, like you said, cinematic. It just really feels like a film.
Michael Lark and all those other guys that worked on that book were perfect for it.
Okay, for the second page I'm going to show, it's basically related to the Starman book we talked about earlier, and it's Shade, which was drawn by Cully Hammer and also written by James Robinson. And what's kind of interesting about this is we were such Starman fans, and then it kind of just disappeared off the shelves, and the character wasn't really used anything for 10, 20 years, it felt like.
Yeah.
And then they came back with the Shade series, which was focused on sort of the main villain in Starman. So we were all pretty excited about it, and I've always liked Cully Hammer's work. I just for sure wanted one from this series.
I agree. I got one from him as well.
You can look at this page and know exactly what's going on without reading the word balloons. And not knowing what the story actually is, you can make out what's happening here. And that just shows good storytelling. And Cully Hammer's one of the best at it. He's been doing it forever. It's super clean. I love the blacks. I just like his line work too. I just think he's really, just a great industry veteran.
Yeah. Good storyteller, like you said. He does action sequences really well. I mean, that's why he had a 3-issue miniseries turn into 2 major movies that starred Bruce Willis among other people called Red. Just like you said, he's really good at cinematic storytelling, and obviously Hollywood agreed with that.
Okay, Dave, what do you got next?
I have Batman. So this one I got from Chris Burnham, who, if you ever get the chance to meet, he's quite a character.
He is funny.
He's very funny. But yeah, he's great. I've gotten sketches from him too, and I was onto this guy right away.
Yeah, you were. You were an early adopter.
Yeah, I like his stuff a lot. So I gladly gave him $200 for this page.
I think part of the draw for me at first, Frank Quietly was doing the Batman and Robin book, or had done other work with Morrison, and then Chris came onto it, and it just stylistically fit so well. It was just a real nice transition that you didn't feel like it was a jarring change in art.
Agreed. One thing that Burnham is incredible at to me is he can draw so small, so much detail in such a small space. Yeah. If you look at the faces, it kind of blows me away. And now I think he's an incredible artist. He definitely has his own style, like you said. And I was glad that I pulled the trigger on this one. It's cool too because you can see the blue lines. Obviously, he did that way and then inked over it, which his inking is just, it's crazy good.
Okay, for the last page I'm talking about today, this is a very recent page. I just bought it this past summer at C2E2. And it was from Chris Sprouse on the series Multiversity that he had done with Grant Morrison. I love Chris Sprouse's art. I've been a big fan of his for years.
What was the first thing that we got on him?
The first book I got from him, it was called Newman.
Oh, that's right.
Which was a Rob Liefeld, sort of spin-off, right? But Eric Stevenson was the writer on it, who now is a big deal at Image. And kind of felt like Stevie Ole art at first, and I was, because I was a big Vertigo fan, and so this page I had gotten at C2E2 right from him. I had been looking at his stuff, and I do own another page from that Newman series, but I didn't have like a really great sort of action page. The one I have is just people standing around. So when I saw he was going to be at C2E2, I really wanted to meet him and take a look at his stuff, and he had pages here from Multiversity, and when I saw this one with so much ink, there's so much detail, there's this great narrative happening, you see this explosive action on the bottom. It just hit a lot of beats for me.
Explosive action and you go hand in hand at cons too, and not always for pages you buy. But, with Sprouse, a lot of times I love the simplicity of his art and his storytelling. He actually doesn't typically use as many blacks as he did in this page.
I agree. So it stood out.
He's really good at using space to, just keep it simple and tell the story and keep the focus on what he wants to keep it focused on. But this page, I remember when we were looking through those pages, this one just jumped right out. I think, like I said, you got the best page. The last page I'm going to talk about today is actually a Flash page, which is not something I would normally buy. However, this page is from Flash Season 0, which is actually tied into the TV show. This page I bought more for the artist than for the page itself. Phil Hester.
Yeah, I've been a big Phil Hester fan since he was on Swamp Thing back in the mid to late 90s.
Exactly. This one I bought somewhat as an investment thing. I don't usually do that, but once in a while I'm thinking, down the road, that Flash show's so popular, what the hell?
Right.
I want to support Hester. Was one that I picked up at the Spring Con or whatever the hell it's called.
In Minnesota.
Yeah. His prices are cheap too.
He is way underpriced.
Yeah, I got a sketch from him and this page, and I think for both of them it came to like $125 or $150 for a sketch and a page with a major DC character. Talking about his art style, he's got a little more of a cartoony style than I typically am drawn to, but there's something about the way that he draws that is just really cool, and it just goes back to good storytelling.
Right.
He's one of those guys that's a good storyteller.
Right, and he has like a cinematic eye. He knows how to block a shot. Everything always seems to be an interesting angle, an interesting composition, and then, like we've talked about, good blacks, good characters. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of a good all-around page here, and it's a really great... you look at that and you know exactly who drew it.
Yeah, I love how he did, like you said, the blacks, and then used the whiteout splatter to add to the background in that middle panel. He's really good at what he does. If you get a chance to meet Phil, I definitely recommend going to talk to him.
Yep. All right, so those are our pages that we have from DC Comics. Kind of get to the part of the show where we like to talk about what we're on the hunt for. What are some DC pages that you would love to find someday?
I don't know, there's so many good people that have worked on Batman, and I've got other Batman pages already that I'll talk about in other episodes. But
Batman's one that I would love to find too, and I don't have... Well, I think the biggest for me would have to be Batman The Long Halloween by Tim Sale. I just absolutely love his stuff. Those heavy blacks, those exaggerated expressions, and just the whole mood and atmosphere he brings to a page is just incredible.
Sure. There's way too many good artists that have worked on Batman and good writers that have done Batman that I don't even know where to begin.
Right.
Frank Miller stuff.
Well, I'm never going to be able to afford that, so it's not even on my list.
Sure. But, it just starting with that and going forward, there's just, I don't know, Norm Brayfogle. There's all kinds of cool artists that have worked on that book. But Jay Lee is one of them.
Oh, yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, he did the Batman Superman series. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did a Huntress sketch for me based on
is beautiful. Yeah.
From that series.
Right.
And it was awesome, but I would love to get one of the pages from that. That's one of them for me.
That's
what
cool.
about you?
Cool. I also really love the current Hawkman series that's going on with Brian Hitch. I love Brian Hitch from when he was doing Authority, but I missed the boat on getting a page at the time because I never had a chance to meet him, so it would have been online, and I think when those pages were coming out, I just wasn't in a... Hey, I did think of one other one. It's from the Milestone series, so I don't know if that really counts. It's part of DC.
Sure, yeah, that was an imprint that they had that was going on around the same time Vertigo started too.
There was a book in there that was drawn by J.J. Birch. It was called Zombie, written by Razum. And it had kind of a Doom Patrol quality, like it just had this weird sensibility. And but the art was, he kind of drew it in like a little more of a scratchy, I don't want to say primitive, but like a it wasn't a refined style, but it really fit the book. And I loved that series, and I've searched for years online, and I've just never found anything on it.
Yeah, another one too that would be cool, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with because it's sold really well this past year, is Mr. Miracle, the Tom King's writing and Mitch Gerard's drawing.
Right.
Now Gerard's, I've met him before, looked at his art, his original art. And
he did Punisher, right?
For Marvel, and his pages were really cheap, and that was just a couple of years ago, but now these Mr. Miracle pages are expensive, but his art style is completely different than it was at that time. So I think he just kind of took this big leap forward and just kind of went to another level. So it'd be kind of cool to have one of those for modern stuff like you're talking about, Hawkman.
All right, so that's our look at DC Comics pages that we have. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.
Watch our other videos, please.
If you like the content of this video, please drop a thumbs up below to support the channel, and make sure to click subscribe to see future content.